So welcome everyone, and today we're celebrating the Dalai Lama's birthday, his 90th birthday, and we're joining in the world celebration of his birthday. And I just wanted to start out with, I'm sorry, I'm seeing there's some people still waiting to come in. So Talanka, if you can watch the waiting room and people waiting, I'd appreciate it. Thank you. I just wanted to start out with two things that I'm going to pull up and show you. So we start sharing in the joy. So this is our Holiness, His Holiness Drikung Chetsang Rinpoche, at the celebration in Dharamsala, having a moment with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And yesterday was a religious ceremony, so it was, essentially what was on the live video was a very long Mandala offering. And there's something like 7,000 people squeezed into a very small place. It was lovely to sort of wave at His Holiness as they were showing the different lamas who were present. Today was more of a lay ceremony, and as part of the civic ceremony, they were thanking all of the countries who had helped Tibet and helped the Dalai Lama, and they featured videos from George Bush, Bill Clinton, and Barack Obama. And one of the things that Barack Obama said was, it's, of course, he led with such dignity and compassion and leadership in human rights around the world, but personally, to take in that he had been a world leader holding that responsibility for longer than he, Barack Obama, had been alive. So almost as long as we've been alive, he has been holding responsibility since he was 18 years old for the Tibetan culture and the Tibetan people, with such great compassion, not only for his, let's say, family, not only for his people, but really becoming open-hearted to the human and sentient beings suffering on the whole planet. So not attached to my family or my group, but all sentient beings. And what he said was, today was, I'm just a simple monk, which is, we should all be such a simple monk, but that he had been practicing bodhicitta with the view of emptiness, which reflects what we've been studying all his life, and he had been practicing shamatha and vipassana so that he can confidently say his life hasn't been a waste. So if you wonder why our emphasis in the, all of these years has been on bodhicitta, shamatha, vipassana, and particularly now the view of emptiness, you can see how we're following in his footsteps. And we can't go wrong following in his footsteps. Now I'm going to bring up another share. And this is really fun. So thinking of his life. So imagine holding the bodhisattva commitment all of those 90 years. It's really quite extraordinary. So today, I invited you to bring some of your favorite passages or favorite readings. And can people raise their hands if they brought something to share or to read? So great. Okay. So Carol, why don't we start with you?
Well, I have two things just in case somebody read one of my other ones. One of them I keep next to my mirror in one bathroom, and the other one I keep in the other bathroom. So would you like the blue or the black and white?
Both.
Okay, okay. The I become at all times, now and forever, a guide for those without protection, a guide for those who have lost their way, a ship for those with oceans to cross, a bridge for those with rivers to cross, a sanctuary for those in danger, a lamp for those without a lamp, a place of refuge for those who lack shelter, a servant to all in need. So I try to look at that before I look at myself in the morning. And then the second one is called A Precious Human Life. And Charlie, are you reading that one? A Precious Human Life? Is that your choice? No, okay. So here we go with the other one. Every day as you wake up, think as you wake up. Today I am fortunate to have woken up. I'm alive. I have a precious human life. I'm not going to waste it. I'm going to use all my efforts and energies to develop myself, to expand my heart out to others, to achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all beings. I'm going to have kind thoughts towards others, and I'm not going to get angry or think badly about others. I'm going to benefit others as much as I can.
Oh, thank you. And so if everyone can go to the chat, we'll, in between people sharing, we'll recite his long life prayer. So now at 90, slightly frail, our aspiration for his long life, you can think of sending energy to support his continued work. For this realm encircled by snow-covered mountains, you are the source of every benefit and bliss without exception. Tenzin Gyatso, you who are one with Avalokiteshvara, may you remain steadfast until samsara's end. Okay, Charlie, how about if we move to you?
Okay. One day I was watching a video of the Dalai Lama. I think he was giving an empowerment of some sort or a preliminary. And at the very end, when people could ask him questions, a woman asked him something that didn't have anything to do with what he'd been talking about. And she asked him how she should think about karma, the karma of having an abortion. And he was quiet for a while. And then he simply said, no judgment. And that's really stuck with me. The Buddha said that only those who were Tathagatas can judge anybody else's karma. And so I've been thinking about that with all the things that are going on in this world and about not having a judgment about other people's karma.
Oh, thank you, Charlie. That is a really extraordinarily compassionate response. And I don't know that karma is judged. A Tathagata could see someone's karma. And so they could say what the karma is. But you're right, no judgment. And isn't that something to hold dear? Okay, let's go to the long life prayer. For this realm encircled by snow-covered mountains, you are the source of every benefit and bliss without exception. Tenzin Gyatso, you who are one with Avalokiteshvara, may you remain steadfast until samsara's end. Okay, who is next? Annie.
This is from an article that the Dalai Lama wrote about leadership. The ultimate source of a happy life is warm-heartedness. Even animals display some sense of compassion. When it comes to human beings, compassion can be combined with intelligence. Through the application of reason, compassion can be extended to all 7 billion human beings. Destructive emotions are related to ignorance, while compassion is a constructive emotion related to intelligence. Consequently, it can be taught and learned. The source of a happy life is within us. Troublemakers in many parts of the world are often quite well educated, so it is not just education that we need. What we need is to pay attention to inner values. The distinction between violence and nonviolence lies less in the nature of a particular action and more in the motivation behind the action. Actions motivated by anger and greed tend to be violent, whereas those motivated by compassion and concern for others are generally peaceful. We won't bring about peace in the world merely by praying for it. We have to take steps to tackle the violence and corruption that disrupt peace. We can't expect change if we don't take action. Peace also means being undisturbed, free from danger. It relates to our mental attitude and whether we have a calm mind. What is crucial to realize is that ultimately, peace of mind is within us. It requires that we develop a warm heart and use our intelligence. People often don't realize that warm-heartedness, compassion, and love are actually factors for our survival.
I think it's good to have a couple of breaths in between each reading because they're so significant. Okay, let's go to the long life prayer. For this realm encircled by snow-covered mountains, you are the source of every benefit and bliss without exception. Tenzin Gyatso, you are one with Avalokiteshvara. May you remain steadfast until samsara's end. So one of the things he was saying, I think, in yesterday, he gave just a very short talk in each of the ceremonies. He was in the temple for the religious ceremony, and a giant statue of Chenrezig or Avalokitesvara is right there. And he said he always felt a connection to Avalokitesvara, and he keeps Avalokitesvara above his head, and always has. So you can look at one of those 1,000-arm images and think of the radiance of Avalokita's heart in this world is the Dalai Lama. Okay, Kathy, I know you raised your hand.
Whether one is rich or poor, educated or illiterate, religious or non-believing, man or woman, black, white, or brown, we are all the same. Physically, emotionally, and mentally, we are all equal. We all share basic needs for food, shelter, safety, and love. We all aspire to happiness, and we all shun suffering. Each of us has hopes, worries, fears, and dreams. Each of us wants the best for our family and loved ones. We all experience pain when we suffer loss and joy when we achieve what we seek. On this fundamental level, religion, ethnicity, culture, and language make no difference. So that's one. And I do have another.
Let's take a couple of breaths and just
Okay.
take first.
The equality of all.
Okay, and what is your second one?
My second one is, we begin from the recognition that all beings cherish happiness and do not want to suffer. It then becomes both morally wrong and pragmatically unwise to pursue only one's own happiness, oblivious to the feelings and aspirations of all others who surround us as members of the same human family. The wiser course is to think of others when pursuing our own happiness.
And long life prayer. For this realm encircled by smoke, you are the source of every benefit and bliss without exception. Hence in Getzo, you are one with Avalokitesvara. May you remain steadfast until samsara's end. And of course, he has promised to take birth over and over until samsara's end. Who else has a reading for today? Let me see if I can. Barbara Cushing. You're muted.
It's not a reading. It's a book. And it's conversations between the author and the Dalai Lama on the history of Tibet. It was so clear, and it would explain the whole history of the area, China, the Mongols, India, in a way that it was one history. And I'd never understood the history of any of those entities as well as in this book. I've kept it with me. And it is one of the things that got me more interested in Buddhism.
Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing. That is a wonderful resource. Was there any particular aspect of it that you wanted to?
The right at the beginning, it's a discussion of how Cheresnik
Yeah.
Had an encounter with another being and made the Tibetan race. And it was so joyful and funny. And that was how he started the book. And that flavor of humor and humanity filled the whole thing. It was quite a history book.
I think sometimes, when we're listening to him in person, we get that sense of humor, and that, the story you were telling, Charlie, too, the direct encounter that can be spontaneous at some of these big teachings can be so poignant. Carol, I know that you've seen him, and maybe John and Nancy have seen him in person. Are there any particular memories that have struck you? You might have gone to one of the Kali chakras or one of his talks.
Yeah, I remember sitting next to, I was like way, way in the top of one of the Kali chakras. I mean, the nosebleed area. And I was next to a young Tibetan couple with a child. The child must have been under a year old. And first of all, the whole hall with all of those people, I mean, you can actually feel it's like a visceral wave of his being. I don't know how to describe it. You would have to be there. But the child, the fact that the family came from very far away, they were from Chicago, and this was in DC, that they brought their child just to be in his presence, to make sure that the child made a physical connection with the Dalai Lama in his life was so touching. And yeah, and I really understood. I was glad that I was next to them because you could sort of feel the vibe come all the way up and envelop us.
Does anyone else have an experience with Nancy?
I wasn't at that gathering, but I had a very similar experience. There were thousands of people, primarily Tibetan. There were not many Westerners at the time in this group. And it was silken. It was just a reverent hush. It Everybody was in amazement to be there in his presence. And that was the tone of the whole thing. They were just, they really understood it. And by being there, I got to understand some of that. It was unlike any other gathering that you might see of other groups. It was the gathering itself made great impression and great inroads on me. Thank you.
Any, Kathy?
I saw the Dalai Lama in Ithaca, and I was going with a mentor, Sue, and no, Sally, and we were running up this hill, and to get there, and I'd never seen him, and I read some of his books at her urging, and Ithaca, I went to school at a college there in Ithaca, and it brought back memories of being a student. So as I'm running with Sally, I said, oh my gosh, I should have reviewed everything. And oh my gosh, I don't know, he was teaching the 8 verses. And she said, Kathy, she stopped me right in the middle of this mountain road and said, if you can't be kind, just do no harm. And so, I went there full of this anxious energy, and I think both of you have commented on the just, ooh, just whoosh. And so anyway, that was my experience when I saw him. It's just a totally different energy. And he is funny.
Thank goodness. So why don't we go to the long life prayer again? For this realm encircled by snow-covered mountains, you are the source of every benefit and bliss without exception. Tenzin Gyatso, you who are one with Avalokiteshvara, may you remain steadfast until samsara's end. On this screen, I don't know that I see everybody's picture. So if you want to do the mechanical, raise your hand if you have something you'd like to share. You can do that as well. Who else has a reading for this morning? Did anyone bring the prayer or the poem Never Give Up? Annie, could you Google that and see if you can pull that up? You have it? While she's doing that, did anyone else bring a reading for this morning? Lucy, okay.
I have a piece out of his book, the Dalai Lama's Big Book of Happiness, and this relates to compassion and civic responsibility. Firstly, in order to carry out the effective ways and methods to bring peace, you need the willpower to face any conflict without using violence, but through dialogue and face-to-face interaction. I often tell people that this century should be a century of dialogue. Dialogue is the only way to solve conflict. If we hope for a peaceful world without any conflict, that is unrealistic. I think as long as we human beings with our intelligence have the ability for different visions, there will always be different hopes and different ideas. Also, with global warming, limitation of major resources and increase in population, There are bound to be factors for conflict. So peace means that we challenge these conflicts without using force, but through peaceful means, through dialogue. Now, in order to carry on dialogue, we need will and determination. And here, determination needs to be based on compassion. That means you simply must respect others' rights and interests and instinctively refrain from harming others. To ensure that, we need a compassionate heart. Secondly, we need wisdom and a more holistic view of the reality, the full picture. So, although it comes from Buddhism and Buddhist philosophy, the concept of interdependency is something I feel is adaptable to everyone. Everything's interdependent.
Thank you. Let's take a couple of breaths with that. And back to the long life prayer. For this realm encircled by snow-covered mountains, you are the source of every benefit and bliss without exception. Tenzin Gyatso, you who are one with Avalokiteshvara, may remain steadfast until samsara's end. And who would like to read the Never Give Up prayer? Who hasn't read yet?
I put it in the chat room.
Thank you. Yes, I could see that, but I couldn't. John, did I see your hand wave? You need to unmute.
Good idea. I apologize. I have a reading I'd be happy to share.
Oh, okay.
I want to preface it by saying I have heard His Eminence Garchen Rinpoche say a number of times that one can see and perceive and understand the Dalai Lama to be even greater than the Buddha, in that his effect has been worldwide. You know, that billions of people are aware of him and feel his energy, and his energy is palpable. So I hope I'm getting that paraphrase correctly of what I've heard His Eminence say. Here's my reading. Time is always moving forward. With each passing moment, beginning from the instant of our birth, we come closer to the end, to our death. That's our nature and the nature of the universe. As spiritually minded people, it is essential for us to constantly check and examine ourselves, to see how we are living every moment of our lives. In my own case, the major portion of my life is already gone. But although I am a lazy practitioner of Buddhism, I can see that each year there is some progress in my life. Above all, I try to be a genuine follower of Buddha Shakyamuni and a good Buddhist monk. Of course, even Buddhist monks make mistakes in our lives and practices, but I think I have made some contribution to this world. We share, especially to the preservation of Tibetan Buddhist culture. In spiritual matters, we should not allow ourselves to be too easily content, because truly there is no limit to our spiritual potential. All of us, any of us, can develop infinitely, and any of us can attain Buddhahood. The mind we possess right now, though it may presently be full of ignorance and suffering, can eventually become the mind of an enlightened being, of a Buddha. Where our material possessions are concerned, finding contentment makes sense. But since there is no limit to our spiritual potential, and there is a limit to the span of our life, we must make every effort to utilize what little time we have as well as we possibly can with this precious human lifetime.
And let's take that in. And again, his long life prayer. I mean, sometimes he says he would have loved to have had a simpler life where he could have done more retreat, and how generous and compassionate it is for him to have held the responsibility for leadership, for everyone. So in gratitude, our long life prayer. For this realm encircled by snow-covered mountains, you are the source of every benefit and bliss without exception. Tenzin Gyatso, you who are one with Avalokiteshvara, may you remain steadfast until samsara's end. And now could someone volunteer? Colleen,
Yep.
would you read the Never Give Up prayer?
Yes. Never give up. No matter what's going on, never give up. Develop the heart. Too much energy in your country is spent on developing the mind instead of the heart. Be compassionate, not just for your friends, but to everyone. Be compassionate. Work for peace in your heart and in the world. Work for peace. And I say it again, never give up. No matter what's going on around you, never give up. Yeah.
Again, taking that in for our continuously troubled times. Who else has a reflection or a reading? I think I'll offer another reflection. I'm so inspired by what you began with, Charlie, thinking about how dynamic his talks are. One of the things that astounds me is he'll be in a room with, maybe 50,000 people, and he'll start really simply. And you can see his extraordinary mind building a logic that takes in absolutely everybody. Like, we all want clean water, or we all want happiness personally and for our families. And he takes everybody step by step, building. You can almost see 50,000 heads nodding until it gets to the point, and therefore we should end all war. And it's all of a sudden the whole assembly of all of these people, all of these different nationalities, agreeing. And sometimes, like, he was building that kind of a lecture in Germany, and he can say things that no one else can say. So he said in the German audience, you have done so much to understand the roots of aggression after the war, that you've used your history to ensure that your children will become different, that you won't repeat the mistake of your country, that you could take a stand for moral leadership. And then we see that wonderful prime minister welcoming all the refugees at that point when there was the Angela Merkel. But I don't know that there would be any leader in the world that could affirm Germany in this era where people have a memory of World War II, affirm the work that they've done. So he works on the macro level, and then at the same time working on a micro level. I was at an assembly in Pittsburgh, and they had brought in kids from a juvenile delinquent center. I think they were in prison garb, and they were, teenagers or young people. And he had been giving a talk on bodhicitta. And often, when Tibetans speak of how to begin developing bodhicitta, it starts with remember the kindness of your mother. And of course, many people have complex relationships with their parents these days. And then he might expand as our holiness does, with, anyone who showed you kindness. You can start there if you can't think of your parents as an example. So he gave a long talk of, many points of entry. And when it was time for questions, this young woman from the prison group said, well, what do you do if you've never experienced love ever in your life? And there was all of a sudden this big silence. And this wasn't so big a room. It was maybe 400 people. He walked off the stage and walked over to her and hugged her. And it was just so direct. I just carried that moment with me because it was so poignant. For everyone, not just for the young woman. Okay, let's go to the chat room again. For this realm encircled by snow-covered mountains, you're the source of every benefit and bliss without exception. Tenzin Gyatso, you who are one with Avalokiteshvara, may you remain steadfast until samsara's end. Who else has something they'd like to share this morning? A reading or a memory or... Okay. What I'd like to do is offer, as I was saying, they did like a hour-and-a-half mandala ceremony in Dharamsala, and I'd like to introduce a mandala offering, a very simple one. So if we think of 70 plus years of holding the responsibility for his country, all of the refugees, and then the world peace. So all of that. But then before that, he was doing uninterrupted studies for another 10, 15 years. So probably from the time he was recognized as a 2 or 3 year old, he was either preparing to hold responsibility and then holding responsibility. And in that period, becoming a world leader, writing 142 books on the environment, every way that he could to teach bodhicitta and promote the validity of how bodhicitta is taught in every religion, so there's no disharmony among religions. Really just being an exemplar of a good bodhicitta life. So we have these feelings of gratitude, and the mode of expression of gratitude in the Tibetan tradition is a mandala offering. And we encountered that before in the Shantideva when we were studying that text, that whole sense of generosity and offering. And you might have noticed in some of the prayers, might be a sentence of offering in gratitude. But the mandala offering is a way of combining what we might be able to directly offer as a gift from our own resources with the universe. How do you put those two together in your imagination? So let me see if I can. First you take your hands and you put your hands back to back, and then you let your fingers cross like this. And then with your thumbs, you hold down your two pinkies, and with your index finger, you hold down your middle finger, And then you let the 2 ring fingers stand up. So this is a hand mudra that is the universe. So in Tibetan view of geography, they had 4 continents and Mount Meru. That's how they understood geography before the world opened up to them. But we can imagine the globe as all of the continents and all of the mountains in our hands. And then we start thinking of everything that is precious to us that we have as a resource, like our home, and you might have sacred objects, or I'm looking at a tanka that is precious, or a statue. So you're thinking of every conceivable thing that you have. And then often you put something in your hands, like you can put 1 coin in your hand or a flower petal. So you add a flower petal or a coin to your hand. So you think of personal wealth. You might think of every flower in your garden. And you also think of your own body and your own energy. So when Charlie was describing his weekly activity for peace, I know a lot of you do different things for peace. So you're offering your physical energy and capabilities along with your intellect. And then you start imagining everything that's you've ever seen that's beautiful. So Barbara, you could offer the whole Metropolitan Museum. John and Nancy, you were just in Norway, all the beautiful mountains and fjords that you saw. Kathy, your lake. So just every conceivable memory you have or can imagine of the beauty and just wonderful things in life, all of the wonderful foods you've ever eaten. So on a Tibetan altar, they make offerings. So there's first the wonderful drinking water. So all of the pure water that is so healing and now is so precious, and water for bathing, then the flowers and incense and foods. I often imagine whole chocolate cakes floating in the air in front of me. Incense, all the wonderful smells, like right now we're going in the garden and smelling roses, so all of the wonderful perfumes in the air, and all the wonderful music. Some of you are musicians, so the most lovely music that you can imagine. So you let your mind really just stretch in terms of holding all the variety of things. And then the wonderful thing in this tradition, you just keep increasing it. So you might imagine out of every pore in your body, there's a light ray, and on the end of that light ray is a lotus and an offering god or goddess, also holding more offerings or the same mudra or aspects of offerings. So you're multiplying yourself millions of times, making these offerings. You might include your ancestors also with you making offerings, and all sentient beings along with you making offerings. And for instance, we've just said a series of prayers like the wonderful Bodhisattva prayer. So we're including all of the ants and flies and mosquitoes that are within the sound of our voice. So you might include them as you're making offerings. All the animals of the world, just every conceivable breadth and depth. And then there is a prayer that goes with this. The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, the 4 continents, the sun and the moon. Visualizing this as a Buddha field, I offer it. Thus may all beings be born in the completely pure realm. To the assemblies of lamas who perfected the three kayas, I offer the outer, inner, secret, and suchness offerings. Please accept my body, wealth, and all that appears and exists, and grant me the unsurpassable supreme city. Om Guru Deva Dakini Ratna Mandala Pratitsa Soha. So you have that moment of offering and then release the offering. So you're releasing flowers in the air. Just with incredible gratitude for one life that has touched almost the entire world, as Rinpoche was affirming. So let's go to our dedication prayers, which includes his long life prayer. And when we get to his long life prayer, we can recite that 3 times. I think you're muted, Talanka. We're still not hearing you. If you want to unmute.
Durji Chang Tilopa Naropa Marpa Milarepa Dharma Lord Kempopa Pagmadrupa and Lord Trikumpa, please bestow upon us the most auspicious blessings of all Kagyalamas. At this virtue may I achieve omniscience, and may all who travel on the stormy waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the oceans of samsara by defeating all enemies, confusion, the cause of suffering. Bodhicitta, the excellence and precious mind, where it is unborn, may it arise. Where it is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manjushri, the warrior, realized the ultimate state, and as did Samantabhadra, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all the merit for all sentient beings. By the blessings of Buddha who attained the 3 kayas, by the blessings of the truth of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessings of the indivisible sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit. By the virtues collected in all the 3 times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all sentient beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of the great Trikumpa Ratnasri, who is omniscient, Lord of Dharma, Master of interdependence, continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara. His Holiness Tenzin Gyatso, the 14th Dalai Lama, for this realm encircled by the snow-covered mountains, you are the source of every benefit and the bliss without exception. Tenzin Gyatso, you who are one with Avalokiteshvara, may you remain steadfast until samsara's end. His Holiness Rikyung Chechen Rinpoche, embodiment of the 3 precious jewels, Padmapani, who holds the teachings of the victorious one, seeing all goodness, meaning with the wisdom eye, may you who are spontaneously established activities live long for hundreds of kalpas. Noble Manjushri, the Lord of Speech, who manifests to hold the teachings of the Triple Gem, who raises the lamp of the sage's teachings, may you who are the light of the Dharma live long for hundreds of kalpas. The one who is the Holy Land, the one known in the Holy Land as the Arya Deva, emanated into the Gork clan of the eastern Tibet as Chodingpa, the heart son of Jigten Sumden. May the life of glorious Gorchen remain steadfast for hundreds of eons. Vajradakini Nunnery is located on the unceded land of the Wabanaki people in the state that participated in the transatlantic slave trade. We recognize our own contributions to the division and strife amongst people and the harm to the planet through our words, actions or indifference. Bodhicitta is ever near at hand, inspiring us to open fully with compassion, listening to cries of suffering and seeing all who are struggling. We turn towards reconciliation with ourselves and one another, especially those who obstruct us, knowing that humanity is one entire fabric. All our threads are needed to make life whole, healthy, and contented on Mother Earth. We are grateful for the gift of sangha and for the bond of Dharma exploration that unite us. May we generate compassion and peace as we go forth today, moving mindfully, harming none.
Oh, thank you. And I want to share one more picture and reading. So, Kathy, when you were talking about essentially the equality of self and others, of all beings, this is the traditional Tibetan meeting of demonstrating that equality, the bumping of the foreheads, the recognition. And this comes from Buddhism, one teacher, many traditions. We Buddhists have a responsibility to serve humanity. The very motivation for Gautama Buddha awakening was to benefit sentient beings. His entire life and doctrine were meant for the welfare of all sentient beings. However, sometimes we think, let the Buddha work hard, we'll have a luxurious life. How can we think that? If we're Buddhists, we must follow the Buddha's own example. He lived simply and was content with what he received. My sincere hope for our Buddhist brothers and sisters is that when we talk about Buddha Dharma and say, propagate the Buddhist teachings, we ourselves first propagate the Dharma in our own hearts. That is essential. Human intelligence has advanced scientific knowledge and technology, bringing both benefit and increased powers of destruction. Creating a happier world ultimately depends on individuals' motivation. Individuals living together and with other individuals form communities and nations, and leaders arise from these. When individuals create inner peace in their own hearts, communities and eventually the world will become peaceful. This is the only way. So, yay, celebrate this wonderful example of a life well lived. And thank you everyone for joining in this celebration today and for actively participating with memories and some of your favorite passages. It's been very rich.